Welcome to What She Said, the heartbeat of Canadian women's voices, with me, your host, Candace Sampson. Here, we dive deep into the raw, unfiltered stories and triumphs of women from coast to coast. This isn't just a podcast, it's a movement where empowerment and education collide and where mansplaining is shown the door. We're here to celebrate, uplift, and echo you. So get cozy, tune in, and let's embark on this journey together, exploring the rich tapestry of women's lives, their battles and victories, right here on What She Said. It's around this time of year that I really start to make note of the corn reaching sky high in the fields and the market stalls brimming with abundant harvests. And honestly, it fills me with just a little bit of dread because August is a reminder that we are moving to the end of summer. And it's now, with the days subtly beginning to shorten, that I feel this really big sense of urgency to soak up every last bit of sunshine and outdoor adventure that I can. So in that spirit, I do hope that you are tuning into today's show while enjoying some time outdoors, basking in the natural beauty that Canada is so blessed with. And while you enjoy it, here's what you can expect over the next hour. We continue our informative 6-part series with Ontario's Pay Equity Office. Previously, we've looked at the nuances of pay equity, the gender wage gap in Ontario, and the distinctions between pay equity and equal pay, as well as the gender pension gap. Today, we shift our focus to navigating the system effectively. Joining me once again is Commissioner Kadie Philp, who will guide us through making the system work to our advantage. Erin Brodie brings us her latest in entertainment. This week, we discuss the powerful documentary Sugarcane on National Geographic on Disney+, which explores the generational trauma experienced by Canada's Indigenous population in Christian residential schools. We also look at the intriguing new film Cuckoo in theaters and Apple TV's original series The Instigators, starring Casey Affleck and Matt Damon. Investing in 2024 can seem intimidating, especially for women who may face unique barriers and apprehensions in the financial world. So I'm thrilled to welcome Eduek Brooks, founders of Two Sides of a Dime, who empowers women to approach their finances with confidence. Eduek will share insights on the common fears women have about investing and strategies to conquer these fears. If adventure is what you seek before summer ends, Camp Fortune in Chelsea, Quebec is the perfect destination. From ziplining and mountain coasters to exploring stunning aerial parks, there's something for everyone. After recently experiencing these activities for myself, I can attest to the thrill, but I want you to hear it directly from Erin Boucher, Marketing Director at Camp Fortune, who joins me to highlight all of the exhilarating activities you can enjoy, helping you tick off those adventurous boxes on your summer bucket list. Lastly, I'm excited to chat with Nicole Babb, a visionary in staging, styling, and property flipping. As the lead of R&P Home and co-host of HGTV Canada's Styled, Nicole brings a unique flair to maximizing property potential. We'll dive into her career journey, her design philosophy, and what fans can look forward to in the upcoming season of Styled. So stay with me as we explore these fascinating topics together right here on What She Said. Welcome to the final interview in What She Said 6-part series in collaboration with Ontario's Pay Equity Office. This series has been designed to inform and empower, and I highly encourage listeners to visit whatshesaidtalk.com to catch up on prior interviews and read more in-depth focuses on these topics by clicking the Pay Equity series at the top of the homepage. Today, however, I'm joined by Commissioner Kadie Philp to tie everything together. Welcome back, Kadie.
It is always great to be here. Thank you, Candace.
Technically, discrimination in pay based on sex, gender, or identity has been protected by the Canadian Charter for over 40 years, and several provinces across Canada have some form of pay equity legislation. So is it getting better?
Yes, it's a good question, and one I face all the time because, as we've been talking throughout the show, we still see the gaps. But yes, so as you mentioned, every province has some form of legislation. And in fact, I think it's important to mention that, since 1997, every single province across Canada has decreased the gender wage gap from 6 to 13%. So you might say like, okay, 6% over the last 27 years, that's really slow. That's not great. But it's progress. And so I balk, when we hear people, mostly old white men from the World Economic Forum, say it's going to take 257 years to achieve economic equality or to close gaps. I kind of balk at that because I can look at the statistics, at least in Canada, and say, no, 6% or 13% in some cases over the last 27 years means that we're going to close it in maybe, 30 to 60 years, which is like not great, but it's still much better than a prediction of 257. And I think what's important for us when we hear these statistics all the time is to really question them and ask about the data. Because, what I like to, what keeps me going in my job every day, addressing this problem is that in fact, progress has been made. 50 years ago, women couldn't actually borrow money from a bank without a male signatory. Think about that. 42 years ago, as you mentioned in your opening question, sex-based discrimination was not even protected. 40 years ago, we didn't have a Pay Equity Act. I mean, only 5 years ago, Canada, the federal government put into place a Pay Equity Act. So you can see that, policies and programs are actually moving in the right direction. And I think sometimes when we have these conversations about what's not been achieved, helps to perpetuate this idea that it can't be achieved. Like when I hear, especially men, say it's going to take 257 years, I go, yeah, whose interest does that serve? It serves the interest of establishing and maintaining the status quo. And the status quo is changing. And that probably scares people in power. And I really don't want to normalize status quo. So I do talk about the progress being made because I think it's fuel. It's fuel to say that this is possible.
That's a really good point because when I hear, 250 years, it does feel hopeless and it's discouraging. And it may encourage some people to stop fighting for equality and equity.
Exactly.
So that we don't want that. So is it actually possible to close the gender wage gap completely? And if it is, what steps do we need to take to get there?
Well, I love that question because I get asked it a lot. And I get asked it in a sort of way that says like, well, because they're not closing, it means they're not possible, like I just said. But they are, in Canada, Prince Edward Island's gender wage gap is like statistically insignificant. It was less than 0% a couple of years ago. It just rose slightly above zero because of all the stuff we went through with COVID. But it's proof that it's possible. PEI is a small province. And so we understand that that's a special case, but also you can look at the structure of that labor market and its policies and programs to really understand why it closed there. And we can apply that in other provinces across Canada. Globally, Luxembourg, the difference between men and women's full-time earning is only 0.4%. And in Belgium, it's 1.1%. So it's possible. Like these are smaller economies with smaller labor markets, but we can still look at what they're doing to actually understand how they successfully closed it. And what we can emulate or what we can apply in our context. My office did a jurisdictional scan a couple of years ago of 23 countries globally and found that countries where the gaps are closing most effectively and quickly are countries that recognize that the gap is actually a really multifaceted problem and it needs a multifaceted approach. So they're not using one piece of legislation to fix it. It's a collection of policies that work together. So we see that in Ontario, right? We have human rights, employment standards, pay transparency, right to disconnect. And then we see other policy trends starting to emerge, which we can talk about later. But all of these are coming in to really protect and empower not just working women, but in fact, all workers across Ontario or across the province they're working in. So in the long run, we see that these multiple policies come together to close the gaps. Yes, it is possible. We have examples in Canada, globally, where the gap is statistically insignificant.
And we've talked briefly about this before, but in light of the successes we've seen, why does the gender wage gap persist?
It's a tough one. And, we look at the data and we have, 30% of the gap is explained. We understand where it comes from. It comes from, tenure. Women work less hours in the labor market because they have higher expectations of care responsibilities, or they might take on part-time jobs because they have other roles outside in their personal lives. Education, there's all these things, tangible things we can measure. That's 30% of the explanation. 70% remains unexplained, which really just speaks to discrimination, which is, we're getting more research to better understand, and we're having better conversations about what discrimination looks like and how to tackle it. So, we still have this challenge of women being clustered in sectors that are undervalued. We've talked about this in several episodes, so your listeners can go back and dive into what that means. But basically, women are still clustered in cleaning and care and service and retail, where the market just doesn't value that job in the same way that it might for male-dominated sectors, because there's biases in the way we kind of categorize typically and stereotypically men and women's work. So those structural aspects, though, are changing, and that's what's actually contributing to closing the gender wage gap. Is you're seeing more women move into quote unquote male dominated space, or typically male dominated spaces, where they're starting to gain better wages, or you see more access to skilled trades and new professions for women. So I think these type of structural aspects is really part of what's left in actually achieving it.
Are there trends you are seeing that give you hope or concern for the future?
There are, a big piece, and you've talked about this before, is pay transparency. This is a new trend that's starting to emerge. It's not specifically linked to pay equity, but it's related. Absolutely. Because the concept here is that if employers are forced to show a salary range, the individual applying for the job has more sort of bargaining power when they go into the job. So, a typical process, an employer might ask what an individual made before at their previous job, and it might be like way below the threshold, and they'll hire them for something nominally more, right? So it really was a disadvantage for individuals not to know salary ranges. So pay transparency is emerging as a really strong one that I think is good for, in fact, everybody in the labor market, but it definitely impacts women and women with intersectional identities, because they are the most disadvantaged when they come into these conversations. Another trend is, governments know that one policy is not going to fix it. And so you see now governments and even companies looking, how can we address this? So you see more support for childcare, because that's a huge issue we've talked about before, right? The disproportionate amount of childcare and care women do. We've seen a broadened definition of parental leave and parental leave policies, and getting more fathers, or if it's a same-sex couple, like both partners, to come into parental leave so that they equalize the sort of time away from the labor market. So the trend really is actually now starting to understand, what are these structural issues? It's women's access to paid labor. It's women's access to childcare, or parents' access to labor, parents' access to childcare, and really taking a more holistic approach to addressing what are the other pieces in the labor market that keeps women out of paid work or well-paid work. And that is a wonderful trend to see, because it means we're starting to shift our ideas about what's causing the gap and how to change the structures that have perpetuated it for so long.
How can individuals and organizations continue to push for progress and pay equity beyond just the legislation that already exists?
This is a great question, because I think it is so much more than just legislation, right? This is a problem. It's not just for governments to solve. It's not just for women to solve, or underpaid individuals to solve. There needs to be employers coming to the table and have honest conversations about their hiring practices, their compensation practices, and really taking a look at the way that they hire and reward and value their employees. I think it's a multifaceted. Everyone's got to be involved in this: government, employers, employees getting educated on what the challenges might be for them and what tools. We talked about this last episode. There's like so many places they can go if they feel like they're being discriminated against, but that's not well, promoted. So I think that's a big part, is the individual also getting educated and empowered to say, there's somewhere I can ask about this, or there's a tool I can use to get justice or economic justice for the work I'm doing.
Is there a message you would like to leave What She Said listeners with regarding the importance of pay equity and their role in achieving it?
This is totally unrelated to policy stuff. I would say you got to know your worth. I think this is a huge part, and we've had lots of conversations in the past around, there's a sort of socialization of women to not be aggressive, or not ask for more, or not stand up for ourselves and kind of be quiet and polite. Ask for more. and know your worth and really understand. And if you're having, confidence issues or challenges, like, one, do the research, go out and see what people in your comparable job are making. So you have some data to back you. Talk to your colleagues, find out what they're making, what their journey has been like. And if you have to get a coach or get somebody, a mentor that you can talk to, because I think it's just so valuable for women to understand what they bring to the table and their worth. And it just makes their confidence so much stronger when they go in to have those conversations.
I couldn't agree with you more. There is such value in community of women. So if somebody is listening and don't know their worth necessarily or struggle to define what that is, lean on other women. This show always highlights amazing, incredible women. So if you're looking for them, just go through past episodes of this show and you will find thousands of them across Canada, including yourself, Kadie. I can't thank you enough for joining me for this series. It's been really enlightening, but more importantly, empowering. And that is the whole message of what she said, is to empower yourself. So thank you so much for joining me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
Hi, I'm Michelle Davis, host of Maverick Makers. Every week, I'm meeting entrepreneurs and intrapreneurs who are making it happen. These bold thinkers are taking big risks, are trailblazing the way in their industries and lives, and are changing how things are done or made. You will learn about their journeys, their lessons learned, and their biggest Maverick moves to date. Listen to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or at maverickmakerspodcast.com.
It's time for Saturday Night at the Movies. Let's see what Anne has in store for us this week. Anne, what are we kicking off with?
Well, may I say, this is a good time for you to sit and relax and watch something. You've just hosted 11 women at your house.
I know, it was amazing. It was such a fun weekend. I'll definitely will share more about that later on. But yeah, it was a great time. So, but yes, I want to watch TV. I want to veg out.
Okay, well, I have the range of emotions for you here, so that on you'll find something. Okay, Sugarcane, which is on National Geographic Disney, is the story of truth and reconciliation in Indigenous communities in Canada, made by filmmaker Julian Brave Noisecat. And it is phenomenal. It's one of the best documentaries I've seen on the subject. It also comes with a strong warning. So we follow him as he speaks with survivors, generations of survivors, about the residential schools and the murders and the babies that were born and tossed into the furnace. Just unbelievable. Now, they traced one baby's DNA, and he was actually identified as one of the Father Price there. And 45% of the rest of the kids' DNA was Ireland and Scotland, which means Catholics. So now the bright spot is the way that the community is galvanizing to work through this, and we're all part of it now. And of course, it was that bright spot when the community was invited to the Vatican, and he's there to film that. So, these things, the excellent production values, the hard-hitting, but not manipulative at all. And it's beautifully paced. It's just a spectacular film. And so these things really sink in. And so here we hope for more truth and reconciliation.
Well, excellent timing on that. Next month, Truth and Reconciliation Day is coming up. So this is a good time for this to come out, for people to watch it ahead of time. All right. What else you got for us?
I've got something really nutty. It's kind of cuckoo, and it's called Cuckoo. And it stars Hunter Schafer, who is an American-German actor, and she plays a 17-year-old girl who travels to Germany to meet her father's new family, and he owns a resort in the Alps. So the place appears to be haunted. It's just tremendously alive with the dead, if you know what I mean. Voices, apparitions, ghosts, things moving, horrifying dreams, what have you. So, and then we have Downton Abbey's Dan Stevens. He is terrifying. He plays the boss, and he has a whip. So there's a lot going on here. So she feels so out of her comfort zone. She meets a woman, they begin an affair. She gets a job on the desk, which seems like a more reasonable way to experience the place. And then she tries to make her escape. But, we know in our hearts the place wants her back. So it is nutty. And kudos to Hunter Schafer, because it is a riot.
And interesting you mentioned Dan Stevens. I was just watching Downton Abbey. I rewatched it, binged the whole series. And I remember obviously when he died at the end of, I think, season 3.
Yeah.
I recall reading he was leaving because he didn't want to be typecast in that.
Oh, here he is.
So it's so good to see him breaking out. Yeah, so that's great. So he got what he wanted. All right, what's up next for us?
All right, we've got Casey Affleck, who co-wrote Apple's The Instigators, and he co-stars with his big brother Ben's best friend, Matt Damon. So they play a couple of low-life hoods, and they have the chance to earn some money. Damon's character needs exactly $36,000 to settle his children's custody and everything and their expenses. And meanwhile, Affleck's character he's just a knockabout. These guys are completely amoral. Although, Damon's character loves his kids, but they're mixed up in an incredibly amoral world. And they have this incredible cast of people like Ron Perlman and Michael Stuhlbarg. Oh, again, talk about changing course as an actor. He's usually the sort of intellectual philosopher type. Here, he's a thug. So they have the mayor in their sights. He's corrupt as it gets. And he has a huge stash of cash in his office from all the bribes he gets. So the two guys are going to get the money. It's occasionally funny, and there's even a little bit of poetry from time to time as they sit in nature for a few minutes. I mean, that's kind of a striking scene. But it's very old-fashioned. It's a very particular kind of genre film. Everyone's clearly marked good or bad, with few variations. And, car chases, fights, gunfire, standoff, threats, blah, 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 blah. And I wasn't crazy about it, shall we say.
I couldn't tell by that last description, Anne. Blah, blah, blah. All right. So that one may not be at the top of our list, but it is on Apple TV if anybody wants to catch it, right?
Well, they're fans for that stuff.
All right. Excellent. All right. Let's wrap it up and talk about Plan B.
Oh my God, I love Vanessa Antoine so much. She was in Digstown. I don't know if you remember her. So she plays a police person in this one. And she takes part in a domestic situation trying to calm it down. But there are 3 murders. So there's a sci-fi element. She has the chance to step back in time and rework things through something called Plan B. So she steps back in time, and it's absolutely fascinating. She's also dealing with all kinds of personal difficulties. It's a complete character study, plus an exciting kind of sci-fi tinged adventure. And she's just the bomb. I think she's fantastic. So that starts August 11th on CBC.
All right. Fantastic. So are you gearing up for a lot of films as we head into the fall, Anne?
Oh, yeah. We're getting all of our TIFF lists, and, it's phenomenal, just phenomenal what they managed to accomplish. So yeah, that's coming.
All right. Fantastic. So lots to look forward to as we continue into the fall here soon. And we'll see you next week though, right?
We'll see you next week.
Okay. Thanks, Anne.
Okay. Bye.
Investing, especially in 2024, can feel like a daunting prospect, particularly for women who may face unique challenges and fears in the financial world. Today, I'm excited to welcome Eduek Brooks, the founder of Two Sides of a Dime, a platform dedicated to helping women navigate their finances with confidence. Eduek is here to discuss the fear many women have about investing and how to overcome it. Welcome to What She Said, Eduek.
Thank you so much, Candice. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you here. I feel like this may be a little bit selfish on my part because I'm one of those nervous investors. Yeah. So why do you think so many women are hesitant and fearful when it comes to investing?
Yeah, for a lot of women that I've actually talked to, one of the biggest things is just not knowing what to do. It's that lack of knowledge. And when we look at our circles, the reason why I even started what I do is because I didn't have anybody to talk to about money in our close circles. We would talk about anything. We'll talk about our husbands, our sexual lives, our kids. We're willing to share those kinds of intimate details. But I feel like when it comes to money, it becomes like a topic that we shy away from. So if it's not something that is really being discussed in your circle, it's kind of like not in top of mind, first of all. And then even when you start to hear about it, I feel like the financial world has made it sound too complex when it's not. So you just feel like, oh my gosh, this is just something that is too complicated. I don't want to waste my time doing it. I don't have time to even spend to learn it. And another thing that I find common is that fear of losing money. A lot of the things that we hear about investing just from the news and from history, we hear about all the losses. We hear about the bad sides, and we don't really hear a lot about the good sides about investing. So a lot of women, because we work so hard for that money, like you can't fathom the thought of just losing that money that you've worked so hard for. I know we're dealing with even pay equity. It's like, okay, I'm only earning this much, so I'm trying to protect it as much as I can. So those things really factor into that fear that I found that a lot of women have when it comes to investing.
It's an excellent point. That's something we talk about all the time here at What She Said is sort of, how we do have to work so hard for our money. So I understand why women want to hold on to it and don't want to take that risk. So are there other common misconceptions women have about investing that help contribute to their fear of sort of letting go and jumping into the market?
Yeah. Biggest thing is that investing is complicated. It is not. It is not at all. I promise you. It is so simple. I always tell people it's simpler than ordering on Amazon. On Amazon, you have to do a lot more research and figure out if you like the product. You have to compare, you have to read the reviews. When it comes to investing is only as complicated as you make it. I think the reason why people get into that complicated and analysis paralysis frame is because they're trying to do too much too soon. So if you really just step back and do the simple things that you're supposed to do, it's not as complicated. And I mean, I blame the finance bros of the world that have made it sound so difficult and complicated, because when you hear about investing, it just sounds like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it. And even like when a typical financial institution in Canada, when you walk in and you say, I want to start investing, the first thing they're going to do is I'm going to pair you with a financial advisor and they'll take care of it for you. You don't need to worry about it. So there's not a lot of people that are educating you on how to invest. So it just sounds like this out of world complicated thing that you can't do, and you just have to leave it to the professionals.
So how do we then overcome this fear of investing and build our confidence in making financial decisions that will serve us for a long time to come?
Well, the first thing is just learning. A lot of times that fear, that not knowing is overcome with the knowledge. A lot of times when I talk to people, when I teach them investing, that sometimes I do a class and it's like 90 minutes or an hour, and everyone there, like I make them purchase their investments on that call and they're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I figured this out in an hour. I thought this was harder than it was, but really just scaling back and just going back to like step one. Okay, what do I need to do? First of all, like, okay, I need to figure out how much do I need to retire on? That's like step one. And then the second thing is figuring out what accounts do you use. A lot of people think that when you want to invest, you have to go to your bank to open an account, but no, you have to invest through an investment brokerage. So an investment brokerage acts as that middleman between you and the stock market. So if you wanted to buy something from the stock market, you can't just walk into the store and buy it. You need to go through that middleman, which is the brokerage. And then when you go to the brokerage, you're like, I want to open an account. They'll ask you, which account? Is it a TFSA, which is a tax-free savings account, or the other common one, the RSP, Registered Retirement Savings Plan? A lot of people say, I don't know which one to choose. I just choose both. Don't complicate your life. Just pick one. It doesn't matter which one. Just pick one. They both work out to be the same at the end if you really look at the math. So just don't overcomplicate it. Choose one that feels easy. And you don't have to start with $20,000. Maybe start with $50. Maybe start with $100. Start to really practice and learn, like, okay, well, where do I start? Like, a lot of people want to go to stock picking and trying to pick the next Nvidia, the next Tesla, the next Amazon. Well, what if you just buy something that has all of those great companies inside of them? That's what we call the exchange traded funds. So they're basically like a basket of stocks. So they figure out what are all the greatest companies in Canada or what are all the greatest companies in the US, and they just buy them inside that one fund. So when you buy that one ETF, you own all of these great companies. So rather than trying to do an analysis on each company, you just buy that ETF that already has those great companies, and it just takes out the guesswork for you. So that's the next thing. It's like, okay, what ETF do I buy? I typically say you want to focus in 3 areas. You want to focus one that is local. So one that has Canada, so the top companies in Canada. Another one that is in the US, because the US is another strong economy. And then something outside of Canada and US. This is what we call international or emerging markets. So once you have those 3, you really don't need anything else. And there are some people that will add things like bonds, because bonds are a little bit more safe. So for you, if you feel like your risk tolerance is a lot more conservative, you add a little bit of bonds to it. And that's really it.
What about people, though, who might be looking and say, well, I don't want to invest in oil, and I want to maybe invest in things that are going to make the world a better place and all of those things. Do you look at those aspects as well, or help people find investments like that?
So the great thing with ETFs, exchange traded funds, is that there is one to fit any need that you have. There is halal investing. So for those that are Muslim and they need like halal companies, there's that already there. There's ESG companies. So these are companies that have like sustainable practices, ethical practices. So they have a list of companies that would be inside that fund as well. So you can really just narrow down your search if you're like, okay, I don't want to invest in the entire US market because I don't want companies that maybe, like you said, are in oil, or some people don't want to deal with weapons. Some people don't want, even now that we have the issue with Israel, and like some people like, I don't want to invest in companies that are supporting wars and all those types of things. So you can really narrow down your search. So that's where a little bit of research will come in, and they make it so easy. You can look at the list of the companies that are actually inside that fund, and you can actually see the sector that they're invested in. If you go a little deeper and you actually pull their financial statement, this is where a little bit of research comes in. You can see all the products and services they offer, even the regions that they operate in, and you can decide for yourself that, hey, I don't want to invest in this company based on what I've seen. But yeah, it's totally doable. You just have to do a little bit more digging to find out those companies.
Obviously, you're an incredible resource to learn about investing and putting your money to work for you. But are there other resources you would recommend for women who are just sort of starting this journey or thinking about getting into it a little bit more?
I love to read a lot. I love to listen to podcasts. So a lot of the things that I learned was just by reading. One of the books that I read that was really Canadian focused was The Millionaire Teacher. And the one that I love is I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi. I like how he just takes all the BS out of investing and just allows you to focus on the simple things. So another one that I love is The Simple Path to Wealth. It really focuses on investing in things like ETFs, keeping it simple. So these are some of the books that I was able to read. Another one that I love was Quit Like a Millionaire. They're actually 2 Canadians that retired in their 30s, and they're just traveling the world. And that's one of my dreams. And that's one of the reasons why I invest, is because a lot of people think about investing as something you have to do when you're 65, but you can actually do it in your 30s and live a really rich and full life. So those are some of the recommendations that I have.
I want people to be able to get in touch with you. I mean, even I think I might jump into one of your classes. When you were talking about being on a call and by the end of it, people are investing, that made me a little bit nervous, which made me think I need to do this. So I want other people who may feel this to be able to reach out to you, maybe chat with you a little bit more. And what's the best way for them to do that?
So one of the easiest ways is through my self-paced investing course. It's called Stack My Dime Blueprint. It literally walks you through every single thing you need to learn about investing. So you can find it on www.stackmydime.com. So that's self-paced. But if you find that, okay, I really need someone to sit me down and teach me this, I need someone to hold my hands. I also do private coaching. So you can go to my website and there's a form that you fill out. I get all your information and then we can book a session to kind of see if it will be a good fit to work together.
All right. Fantastic. Eduek, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
If you're looking for a way to step out of your comfort zone this summer, look no further than Camp Fortune, located in Chelsea, Quebec. With soft adventures like zip lining, a mountain coaster, or a stunning aerial park, there's something for everyone. I recently experienced these activities with a group of friends, and we had an absolute riot. So today I'm excited to welcome Erin Boucher, the marketing director at Camp Fortune, to talk about all the exciting things you can do there this summer so you can add it to your adventure bucket list today. Welcome to the show, Erin.
Thank you, Candace.
Can you start by telling us a bit about Camp Fortune and what makes it such a great destination for summer activities?
So traditionally we're a ski resort and that's how people know us. But over the past few years, we've been branching out and we have a lot of really fun things to do. So mountain biking, downhill mountain biking, cross-country mountain biking, aerial park, this really cool mountain pipe coaster, which is super unique to the region. And then if you want some high flying fun, we have high-speed zip lines, which you and your friends did this weekend. And the views and the experience on that is incredible.
Actually, I want to talk about the zip lining a little bit because first off, you didn't have to worry about the braking, which I think is really, really great because I think a lot of people stress about that. So can you tell me a little bit about the zip lines and how it works?
Yeah, so that was always the premier activity that we wanted to get to. So that was in our long-term plan, and we finally got it open last year, July 2023. So they're dual zip lines over three, and it's a 3 zip line course followed by a free fall jump at the end, which in itself is quite the thrill. So high speed zip lines, speeds of up to 80 kilometers an hour. You're zip lining next to a friend. You don't have to worry about the braking or anything. We clip you in, we double check your safety, then we let go, you fly, we get you at the end of the automatic braking system, and then you do it again through a series of 3 lines, and the views are incredible.
Absolutely. And I just want to, because I really do want to encourage people to get out and try this because I know people have nerves about this, right? And so I really want to drive home the point. I was so impressed by the safety precautions that were taken. We had 2 people setting us up every time. They switched halfway through. So we did sort of that routine again. There was a double check on everything before we did every single run. And then there were people at the end who were ready there again to help you unhook. Even though it's braked on its own, there were people there to help you. So at no point was I ever nervous. Like none of our group felt nervous. We weren't scared. We just felt completely safe in this environment, which allowed us to really enjoy that view you're talking about. And wow, it is spectacular, especially that first one over 2,500 feet.
The first one, I believe, is 1,500 feet, then 1,000 feet, then 500 feet.
Yeah, absolutely incredible. So summertime is a really great time for families as well, though. I mean, I was with my friends, but it's a great time for families. So how about parents and kids? What activities can they enjoy at Camp Fortune? Are there age or height restrictions for these activities?
Yeah, so each activity has its own set of restrictions and safety guidelines. The family-friendly activity is really the aerial park because you can choose between 3 courses. So we have the children's course and we have the adults course or teens and adults. And that is all based on a reach requirement. So check the website and check that out. The age is generally 6 to 10 for the kids course, but again, that that's reach. And then for the mountain coaster, that is our most accessible, family-friendly activity, and you need zero fitness for that. Anyone can ride a mountain coaster and have fun. The zip lines is a little bit different. That's based on weight, and right now we're 90 pounds to 250 pounds, and that is all sort of engineered in terms of weather and winds and stuff like that. So unfortunately, that limits the young kids, but various options for families.
And the mountain coaster is how old?
The mountain coaster, we were supposed to open in 2020, but hey, there was this worldwide pandemic that sort of slowed things down a bit. So we finally got it open for 2021. It came from Austria, and that was the limitations in terms of getting the cruise over. And it is one heck of a ride. It's really interesting. And I do want to point out, too, that we're in the Gatineau Park, so everything we do needs to be approved by the Gatineau Park. The selling feature on the zip lines and the coaster and everything we do is that aside from the chairlift, these are non-motorized activities. So gravity-fed adventure fun. And that's what makes that coaster really unique in terms of its non-invasive installation. So we sort of worked with the geography, worked with the ski runs, worked with the way the forest went and had it engineered. And it's a fun little ride.
I mean, I was going down it myself and just whipping down on this hill. I was impressed at how much speed we got. Do you know how fast it goes?
Maximum of 42 kilometers an hour. And that feels so much faster because you're only about 12 inches off the ground. So you're really feeling every twist and turn. And yeah, no, that's 40 kilometers. It's not that fast, but it feels really fast in that little cart.
It absolutely does. At the aerial park, which we didn't get to do, but I've done aerial parks in the past. So can you tell us a little bit about some of the challenges that people can expect if they do the aerial park?
Yeah, so that's essentially an obstacle course through the treetops. So we've actually had that open for 19 seasons. It has been really popular throughout the entire 19 years. It's a series of obstacles, also known as treetop games. So crawl through a lobster cage, do a tightrope, various bridges. There's even a climbing wall high up in the treetops. That one is quite the challenge. And then there's also a series of zip lines in the aerial park. But I will note that those are shorter zip lines, lower speed, and then those are braking. So the guest has to brake. So the aerial park is all about challenging yourself, challenging your friends, challenging your family, and seeing if you can tackle the adventure together.
Camp Fortune is obviously known for skiing in the winter, but do you still are you tracking your visitors to see how similar it is now between the seasons? Are you getting that many visitors in the summer?
Well, we're still building the summer business, and I will say we have a long way to go. We are a very, very historic, therefore very popular ski resort. So it is a much, much slower season here in the summer, which makes for a great guest experience. The vibe is a little bit different. It's a lot more tranquil than it is in the winter. You don't have the lineups, and it's a really nice experience. But summer business is definitely something that we're building, and now that we have sort of what we call our triathlon of fun, I think we really have a product for everyone.
So are there any special events or promotions that people should know about in the remaining weeks there are left of summer vacation?
We do have a group package on the coaster, and then we are offering still, we went into the season with discounted rates on the zip lining, and those are still active because we have lots of reservations available. So, and we are open daily through to Labor Day.
All right. So for those who are planning a visit, are there best ways to book their activities or get more information about Camp Fortune?
Direct on our website, campfortune.com. We have the reservation system, and then we have all the information you could ever want to know.
All right. What do you hope visitors take away from their experience at Camp Fortune then?
Really, it's a great place. Ski resorts in the summer are really different than they are in the winter. It's a natural playground right outside of the city, and it's just a really great place to spend a day.
I have to agree with you on the natural playground aspect of things. I mean, you do get all of the elements of a park, going to a big park, but you're within nature, and it is just as exhilarating. But also you get the benefit of seeing, like we were up on the zip line and we were watching deer go through the woods, which was so fun. And you're not going to see that, at another amusement park. So thank you so much, Erin, for hosting me and my friends. We had an absolute riot. And I really do encourage people to go check it out. So one more time, where can people find out more information, and can they follow on social?
camfortune.com for our corporate webpage, and then also social media. Lots of great reels on Instagram, which will give you a really good view of everything. And then Facebook, less active on TikTok, but we're there as well.
All right, fantastic. Thank you so much for joining me today, Erin.
Thank you, Candace.
I'm excited to introduce you to my next guest, Nicole Babb, the talented stager, stylist, house flipper, and entrepreneur known for her unique looks and ability to maximize a property's potential. Nicole leads R&P Home, a family-owned design firm she founded in 2015, and co-hosts HGTV Canada's Styled, now in its second season. We'll be discussing Nicole's career, her design philosophy, and what viewers can expect in the upcoming season. Welcome to What She Said, Nicole.
Thank you so much for having me, Candace.
So Styled is now in its second season. What can viewers expect this season, and how has the show evolved since its debut?
I think viewers can expect to be pleasantly surprised with basically touching on every sense, like your vision, your feeling motivated, feeling sad, almost happy, like every single emotion that somebody can go through, they're going to experience with Styled. And I know for a design show that sounds crazy, but it's true.
So your design style is influenced by your Asian, Caribbean, South American heritage and your travels. So how do these influences shape your approach to staging and styling homes?
I think the best way to learn is to travel, to really get to embrace a culture and to be able to be influenced by it. I think the best thing to do is to go there. And I think that I've been able to pick up like how people live, how people are really looking to have an inspired home by picking up artifacts, art, things that really influence and inspire us daily. So I think just by traveling, you're able to bring a little piece of your favorite place home with you and use it in your decor so you're reminded every day.
And one of your skills is styling strategically to add value. So can you share some tips for homeowners looking to maximize the potential of their properties, whether they're planning to sell or even stay?
I think the most important thing is to remember that most people want to have a very livable space where they have enough space. I think the number one thing is have a home for everything. Like with storage, for example, don't leave things just visibly out. It's visually cluttering for the mind. And especially when you're selling, no one wants to see someone else's junk.
And how do you balance incorporating bold colors, textures, and patterns while ensuring a cohesive and sophisticated look? I mean, this is something that I struggle with in a big way. I am terrified to put something really bold in my house because I fear I might hate it, the next day or something. So how do you work with that? And with people who may be fearful of putting these elements into their home?
I think if it's something that you really love, like back to, when you travel and you find a piece of art that you really like, use that as a backdrop of your design and think of like a cohesive theme. I would say, if you like bohemian, if you like classic, if you like modern, like you really have to investigate who you are, what you want to showcase, and keep it under 5 colors. I think that's a good way of making sure that it's not the entire rainbow that you're putting in your space. I mean, color is great. Green is life. So plants always work, like always, always. And that biophilic feel of introducing the outside in, it really adds a softness and liveliness to the home.
Can you tell us what one of your favorite projects on Styled has been so far and why?
For season 1, I really loved Sony's. Hers was one of my favorites because she's a single mom. She's a doctor. She's raising 2 beautiful girls, and she wants the space to be reflective of her now. She was newly divorced, and she's like, when I got this house, it was my family home for her husband and her kids. And I really love that we can constantly reinvent ourselves. And your space is a good way to start. So we gave her a beautiful refresh. And I really think of someone, when I think of someone deserving, it's her.
You're a successful entrepreneur outside of this show. Do you have any advice for others looking to break into the home staging and design industry?
I would say home staging has done such a shift with technology now that people are doing digital staging, and then also just with interest rates changing, it's a different market. And I would say for people to concentrate more on the design aspect. And I encourage people to live more of a designed life, not having to, when they're getting ready to sell, like rush and have to change everything. I think that's the takeaway. If someone's trying to start a business, is you need to do the homework as to the supply and the demand. What is the demand right now? And I would say I would lean more towards the design side than the staging side currently in this market.
How do you stay inspired and keep your designs fresh and unique amidst all of these changing trends?
I would like to think that I'm a good listener. So whoever my client is, I try to listen to what their needs are, what they're trying to accomplish, what they like, what they don't like. It's amazing to me, like how people don't even know themselves because they've never really been asked and they've never really had someone actually listen.
So this is what she said. We always like to lift up other women. So are there other women in sort of the industry that you look to for inspiration that perhaps mentor you in some way?
I would say definitely. I just met her the other day, but Ali Buds is an amazing entrepreneur. She's built an amazing business. She's also a part of the HGTV Canada alumni, and she was quite lovely. I love her work. I follow what she does, and I would love to pick her ear a little bit more, but definitely Ali Buds right now for me.
Can you tell me a little bit about the application process to be part of Styled?
So Styled, to be a part of the renovation aspect, you need to have a space that you're willing to leave for the duration. That's usually the hardest part for people. You have to have somewhere to go. And you need to be, bubbly. You have to be friendly, like not mind being in front of the camera and really allow us to do our thing. I mean, obviously, again, listening to what your needs and wants are, but having an open mind that we're going to transform your space in the best possible way.
And do you have a hard time choosing who you will actually go to and help them redesign their space?
I do, because I've learned that not all money is good money. Not everyone is for you. And if you know from the very beginning, like if you really follow your instinct, you'll know if someone's a good fit for you or a good match. So I've had to turn jobs down just based on my own mental health and knowing that it just is not going to jive well. There needs to be some trust. Again, listening to the client, but they also have to listen to me.
So tell me what you're most excited about then for the future of Styled and your work with your business, R&P Home.
I think what I'm most excited about is just how diverse our show is, how we really represent Toronto in the best way, because we're showing all walks of life, people in different aspects of their life. We're showing young parents, empty nesters. We're showing single women that are using their homes as an investment property. So I think we're checking all of the boxes, which not a lot of shows do. And we also have 2 reveals, which no other show does, which is pretty amazing. So you're really getting your bang for your buck watching our show for an hour. So I'm excited to see what people think. I'm excited to see how they relate. And I think our budgets are pretty reasonable for what we do. So it's relatable. And I always want to do things that are relatable for people and aspirational at the same time.
So if people want to catch your show or connect with you, where and when can they catch the show, and how can they maybe reach out to you, ask you some questions, and keep up with what you're doing?
So people can catch Styled anytime on Stack TV. We're streaming season 1 and season 2. And you can also catch us on HGTV.
Okay, fantastic. Do you have an Instagram handle people can follow you on?
Yeah, it's Nicole Babb _.
All right, fantastic. Thank you so much for joining me today, Nicole.
Thank you so much, Candice. Take care.
If today's podcast resonated with you, spread the word and share the inspiration. Don't forget to hit subscribe on What She Said across your favorite podcast platforms. Crave more? Join my vibrant community by signing up for my newsletter at whatshesaidtalk.com, and let's get social on Facebook, Instagram, and X at What She Said Talk. Dive into my world a little deeper on TikTok and Threads at Candice Said. And for those who love the airwaves, Catch me weekly on 105.9 The Region, Blast the Radio, and 107.7 Pulse FM. Until next time, keep making waves and remember, your voice matters.
Come on, let's go to the Blue Hotel. I wanna live at the Blue Hotel.
The podcast that goes everywhere the imagination dares. It's for the open-minded, the pleasure seeker. It's Jeff Woods with the new podcast about relationships and sexuality, theme-based with special guests, the Blue Hotel Hotline, and every episode climaxes with an adult bedtime story. Get a room and listen in at the Blue Hotel. Begins Friday, September 23rd.
Hey there, this is Todd Arkell, host of The Mental Approach. Thank you for taking the time to listen to The Mental Approach. I created this series for parents and their athletes because everyone is training their physical skills, but so few of you are training your mind. And I've assembled a cross-section of athletes and coaches as guests to provide you with inspirational stories, practical advice, and some encouragement to gain the edge you need both on and off the field of play. This show is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and of course at thementalapproach.com.
Another Sound Off Media Company podcast.